Hello everyone, Kim Kennedy here, and welcome to another recording of our Empowered Women series. This series is a series of interviews for the purpose of empowering each of you as individual women, and we hope that our stories and our messages resonate to help you to be more truly who you are. And today I've got my beautiful friend, Ildiko Haag is a wonderful friend of mine. We've been friends for many years, and we've had the good opportunity of also working together in women's circles and gatherings. Now, Ildiko is, in her words, a badass woman, and I take that to mean an empowered woman. Now, that particular word has special meaning to Ildiko, so that's why I'm using it today. And she's currently transitioning from motherhood, full-time mothering. Ildiko has 5 children and her youngest has just started high school, so there's a little bit more space has opened up, and Ildiko is transitioning into mamapreneurship. So the topic that we're going to be covering off today is a very deep topic, and that's something that I've come to know in my conversations with Ildi, is that she has the ability to go very deep and to find deep truth in pain and in sorrow and in grief. And the name that we're giving to this interview is There Is One Grief. And I was sharing as we were preparing for this interview a story that I had an experience of many years ago. One of the school community fathers passed away, and he left behind 3 children, a 9-month-old, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. I may have those ages wrong, but they were young, and a wife. And I recall at the service the overflowing numbers that were there to support this family. And within this environment, there was not a dry eye in the church. And I recall having this thought that this grief would be too overwhelming for this mother and the children to be carrying in the initial stages on their own, and that in fact I had the thought that the community was actually sharing part of the load for this family, and in supporting her and helping her with this grief at the time. So without delaying any longer, let me welcome Ildiko. Thank you so much for giving your time today and sharing with us. And what I would love to really just to jump into is, we talk about that there is one grief, and although it has many faces, I would really love to hear from you. What does grief mean for you, and how do you experience it, and how do you allow that to be part of your life?
Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. I feel very honored. It is a deep topic, as you said. And I would probably want to start with a story from my life. I've become accompanied, I guess, by sorrow from a very, very early age. My very first memory that I can collect is one of sadness and heartbreak, overhearing my sister crying when she was brought home from the hospital after her birth. And I still can recall, my body remembers all the sensations that go with that hurt of feeling someone else's pain. And from then on, grief and sorrow and sadness have been my companion for all through this life. And there were, of course, times of not really wanting to feel it, not wanting to allow its depth. But 5 years ago, when my fourth baby passed away, I was getting to know it in an even more intimate way. And it hurts. Sorrow, grief has its own way of showing up, and we understandably have challenges on the way to what to do with it, how to be with it. And I found what works for me best is if I'm really honest, and when it's very intense, to be able to say to it, it's hard to be with you. As far as I can tell, grief is a being, as it seems, that there is this one life that animates everything, that's expressing itself in some kind of form. And I guess we are in harmony with our intention, even for this recording, is to honor all beings. So as far as I can tell, grief is a being, and as every other being, it loves being honored and appreciated and invited, accepted for what it is and who it is. And the more we can relate to it as the intelligence that it is, the more it reveals about itself and the more it relaxes. We probably can all relate to, when someone is really being with you, when they really feel you, you relax more. And I find that with grief, it relaxes with the allowing. And when grief relaxes, it is allowed to almost play. And I find its favorite play is movement and sound, sometimes song, sometimes words. And so as it wants to just be and be accepted and wants to rest back into its own naturalness, you find that really it is life itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful being. And losing someone is always a challenge to be with, or losing anything in life. As you said, there is one grief. Grief is grief. But when we feel the sadness over whatever loss we might experience, let it be even what we could say a small thing, something didn't turn out the way we wanted it. It's a loss. It's a loss of a potential, it's a loss of an expectation, a dream, an idea. So to be with that loss requires us to just to be present and accepting. And that way we can start appreciating more and more the richness of life and everything in it. There is no exception to what we can be with and what we can cherish, I guess. So it seems that nothing is really what it seems on the surface. And so sadness, can be very mysterious and deep. So being with sadness, we will find that to honor its depth is an invitation for us. And sometimes we find, as you started this recording with your story, we will find that sometimes it's too big to be our own. So who knows in this mystery, which part is yours, which part is the human grief, the human sorrow. And there is always a reason. The way we are at this stage in our human evolution, there is a lot to be sad about. So, yes, losing a baby, a son, although I say baby, he was 17 years old, taught me, how the body can really be with a lot of feelings, very, very deep feelings. And at the same time, your soul can know and even enjoy the expansiveness of life itself. So for me, through grief, the discovery of life being life, and by definition, life cannot die, was an unbelievably precious gift. So
yeah, and that's a place that is not necessarily available at the initial or in the initial stages of grief. And if you excuse me, I guess what is coming up for me is thinking about somebody that is experiencing grief. And I would have to say that our Western culture, we're not really taught very well how to handle these emotions. And I feel that we can get quite disempowered by them because we actually become quite fearful that, whether we're going to be able to handle, if you like, the depth of these emotions. And what you're sharing is that when we find the courage to allow and accept and go into, and welcome sounds like possibly a very challenging word, particularly when we're in those initial stages of grief, but to honor and allow, however that looks. It doesn't have to be beautiful, it doesn't have to be graceful. It's it could be angry. It could be disbelief. It could be all of those things, and it can be none of those things. That it's very individual, and it's very deep. It's very personal, and however it shows up is absolutely okay, and for us to honour and allow the space for that. I wonder, what would be helpful is perhaps if we shared some ideas or some actual practicalities that women could take away from here, that perhaps a feeling that they're trying to keep a lid on something, or that they feel that they don't manage their grief very well. I'm here to say that, you are. If you're watching something like this and you're acknowledging that there's grief present in your life, then you are honouring it and you are managing it. But yeah, Ildi, I'd love to know, some of the practical ways, and maybe even, how did you actually manage the intensity and the rawness at the very early stages, and how has that progressed and to where you are with it now?
I remembered that it was okay. I remembered that no matter how spiritual we become, we are present in this form, and the form needs to shape itself around experiences. And I spent quite a bit of time, actually, few years prior to that event, with just researching a little bit, especially about the Jewish practice of grief and sitting Shiva, and especially around women, wailing women.
Yes.
So I felt very connected to that at that time, and I wished that it was something that we could embrace in our society, in our culture. The acknowledgement of, no matter how okay everything is, it is also okay for the body and the mind to having to, adjust to something very deep or very meaningful or very raw, as you said. And so I consciously gave permission to myself to be devastated, to be absolutely undone. And I made sure that I created space for myself where I could just really let loose and just let whatever wanted to come to, move through the body. And I don't think I've done it perfectly, but I had experiences where I would, get into my car and just drive on a road that was familiar enough that I didn't have to completely, be on my guard, and in hours where it wasn't as busy. And I would have the windows up and just scream.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered also from my past learnings that with sounds, it's very important that they have enough room in us. So, creating sounds that ever want to come in certain shapes. Sometimes it was an ah, sometimes it was an oh, sometimes it ooh. Whatever sound wanted to represent what feelings, what part of the grief was releasing or moving. I try to tune in and allow my body to take up that shape, that resonance, that that form. And I try to allow others around me to also experience it in a way they wanted to. I asked Spirit to hold me when it was really hurting, and I literally imagined being held in arms that I wished we did have in our culture, comfortable with holding. But it's quite it's rare for us to be able to do that. So I had to just imagine that I was being held. And that really did help. Practicalities. Yes, whatever is comfortable, whatever is true, whatever you feel you need. Sometimes you can ask for it. Sometimes it's too difficult to ask. So, that was my way of easing into. And of course, I learned a lot through what wasn't there for me that would have been nice.
Yes.
It would have been really nice to be allowed to just not be a host, for example, when someone very well-meaning came over to visit. And automatically we got into that posture of someone came to my house, I'm the host.
Right.
I have to serve, but that requires you to really get yourself together. So, yes, I remember, feeling like that a few times and just wishing that we had the practice, the experience and the training maybe to, as we are growing up, to when we go visit others, to take on the role of the host, or at least take just care of ourselves.
Yes.
So they can be with their grief. They can just not have to go in and out of it. And,
yes.
And that it's okay if they want to share, or it's okay if they don't.
Yes.
So that there wouldn't be these, how you call it, heftos.
Yes.
And what's polite, or
yes.
It's a raw experience.
Yes.
It doesn't require any politeness around it as such, rather just deep listening. And when you listen into your own body, even when you are not the griever, you feel what's going on for them. So I guess my main takeaway is how much we need to honor the body.
Yes.
It's just such a sensitive instrument. And it's so, so helpful.
Yes.
And it's been so brave through these years, carrying us through all sorts of experiences. So that honoring, the grief, the body, the interaction, it's very, very precious and beautiful.
That's, so that being that there is no right or wrong way to deal with your grief, but by bringing your focus to whatever is happening in your body, that is a great signal, and that is a place to work with. I had a friend once, I recall, and I remember her saying to me that when it wasn't particularly in relation to grief, but it feels appropriate to mention it at this time, that she would, if she felt emotion arising in her or something, and it can be in the form of she was niggly or she was frustrated, there was this energy that was wanting to be expressed, that she would actually, draw herself a bath and get in the bath and literally say, okay, bring it, so she was allowing whatever was present to be there. And I know that in the intense stages of grief, in those initial stages, there's just such a lot of energy to process and to deal with. And I like that image that you've given of somebody actually almost, being the gatekeeper. And, we do this in birth, particularly in home birthing, that there's for a month, one moon cycle, that this happens where somebody is like the gatekeeper to protect the mother and the baby, to allow them to enjoy that first moon together, so that, that they can really bond and, nourish each other, and for the mother to replenish her energies. And, why should it be any different at death? I mean, that's a way that, it could be set up. And, if you're supporting somebody that is going through a grief, if it's not yourself, how are you, maybe some of these ideas will be useful for you to be able to support them. And also, my experience of my own griefs, and, my story is that in, 2010, I had 3 major griefs in that 1 year to process. And I recall after, I guess the initial intensity, but that my experience of grief for me is that it comes in waves. Mm-hmm. It's not always there. That it, obviously there's this presence in the background, but the intensity of it comes in waves, and that there are actually, there's relief, in the on the downside of the wave, if you like, a bit like a contraction, I suppose, that it just can't stay at that intensity the whole time, that there has to be a shifting and a moving, and that and that those waves, in my experience, become further apart. Mm-hmm. And they still come. 7 years on, and I still have this, recently I had quite a cathartic day around, and it was very inconvenient, and I remember feeling, what's going on here? And it wasn't until I surrendered to it and allowed myself to go into that space that I realized, here is this being again, and there's another level of this to be expressed and honored and allowed to move as it was calling. And I'm fully aware of that place where I'm wanting to put a lid on it, and no, it's not convenient today, I've got this, this and this on my to-do list. But actually, on the other side of that, there was this beautiful opening that it's just an expansion of a knowingness into myself, that why would I deny myself that treasure? And I think that's the beauty that can come from allowing and honouring and being with our grief.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's like death is a form of birth, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It felt like I was birthing Mari back into the earth, and with the contractions, it's just the opposite way. Mm-hmm. First it's the intense, and then it goes a bit more spaced out and maybe more gentle from time to time, although yes, can come anything that, who knows what triggers it. Sometimes you know what it is, sometimes you're not that sure, but when you have the opportunity to sit with it, to be with it, then take that opportunity. If not, it's also okay to just, put your hand on your heart and just say, I'm feeling you, I see you, and I will, have time, such and such. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then make sure that you do honor that, and create some nice space around you, and you can invite grief too. When you feel that, okay, it's opportune time now, I'm on my own in the house or whatever.
Yes.
And create some little beautiful sanctuary around yourself, and just invite it. Mm-hmm. And yes, it will show you its beauty, her beauty. To me, sorrow is very feminine.
Yeah.
And a direct experience of it, you know, you can even ask it, who are you? Who are you in your essence? You know, because yes, it starts off as hurt and pain, but you mentioned it too. It's going to show you its true nature, which is life, its majesty, its beauty. And it is so empowering to really witness, you know, what it shows you. Let it show you. Ask, who are you? You know, I experience you as this hurt, but show me more, and allow it to be really big. And even if you are not very comfortable expressing physically, you can just imagine it too. You can imagine it becoming as huge as, you know, gradually it can become as big as the room, and then it can become as big as your suburb, and, you know, it can become really, really huge, like the universe. And just allow it to do whatever it wants to do. If it wants to cry, if it wants to scream, and you can hold space for it. It's coming to us as to this benevolent space,
yes,
to just be allowed to be in. And yeah, it is absolutely the gift, the alchemy.
The alchemy, yeah.
The alchemy.
Yeah. And, you know, the alternative is that we are disempowered and we continue to deny the truth of who we are. And, you know, showing emotion can be confronting to some people. So it is about having the support of somebody that can hold that space. And I feel to share, recently we were honouring Ildiko for her birthday, and in her invitation she said, I would like the permission to be sad if that's what I need to be, and if you can't be with that, that's okay. But if you decide to come to this gathering, then I ask that you be okay with whatever shows up. And I thought, how beautiful is that, that you were so clear that you could ask for that. And two, you gave permission, or you gave allowance and the space for people to be whoever they were. And you know, there was no expectation. You didn't need rescuing. You didn't need anything from us other than for us to hold the space while you were as you felt authentically to be. And that's the beauty of the connection with women that we can offer to each other. And if we allow that authenticity and we allow what's really here and be with it, and to allow somebody else to express what they need to express. So it was a beautiful ceremony and a beautiful honouring. And you know, we did that out in nature, and I know that nature is a particularly wonderful space for you to feel held and to go into, you know, to express and to allow whatever is there. You know, I used the analogy of the bath, and that can be very ritualized, you know, putting the candles and, you know, putting beautiful salts in the water. And it's, you know, that warm water, it's like being held in the womb. You know, what safer place is there to go into whatever? So whatever that is, setting the space, and or you might not even have the time to be able to set that space up where nature can hold you however you are, and to be there and to walk into that and to honour and acknowledge however your grief is is absolutely your journey with it, and to not need to label it or to make it look a certain way. So coming to, towards the end of our session together, is there, what would you like to share? What message would you like to offer out there to others who are, listening to this? Or
I'd like to just share that a lot of the sadness is actually the sadness about not being seen and feeling maybe not wanted. But when I was walking with sadness the other day, it felt like literally saying, sadness is sad about not being seen and not being wanted. It's very rare in our culture that people welcome sadness. We are a happy culture, and there's nothing wrong with being happy, of course. But sadness wants to also be invited, loved, cherished, respected, discovered, explored, and be intimate with. And it's very empowering, actually, when you allow that, when you experience that. It's like something gets not just expanded but also strong in you, and there is this quality of indestructibleness. So the more you are able to sit with that you didn't like before, let it be sadness or frustration or anger, whatever, all those taboo emotions, things, I call them endangered species now, because not many humans want them. But when we are able, then we will feel the empowerment that comes as a reward, maybe. But I don't want anyone to go into grief for the reward.
Yes.
So, just as in any good relationship, I'm not your friend because of the outcome.
Yes, exactly.
So, it's the same.
It's a byproduct.
It's the respect.
Yes. It's
but
the
then
connection.
Rejoice over whatever is given. So that would be
beautiful. Well, thank you, Ildiko, for giving of yourself so freely this afternoon, and to share your wisdom with others. It's always a blessing for me to have these conversations with you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that it will be for others. And if you feel drawn to and you would like to connect with Ildiko, I will also put this in writing, but you can email directly to Ildiko, ERH44@gmail.com. So that's ILDIKOERH44@gmail.com. So thank you all for viewing and for taking the time to be with us here on this video. Please feel free to share it with anybody. As always, I love to hear if this has been of value to you. Please leave me a comment, or if there's any questions that have arisen, in any way, please leave a comment. And if you want to connect with me, you can do so through my website. That's www.kim, and that's spelt with a Y, mkennedy.com. So abundant blessings until next time we meet. Thank you again, and may your journey be a deep one.